Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hey there. I hope wherever you are in the world listening to this, that you're well and that you're in good spirits. Today, I want to talk about something that I'm calling the clarity tax. Tagline, how mental clutter quietly kills your decision making. So if you've ever felt like maybe your brain has got, 30 tabs open and you're not quite sure, where the noise is coming from. Obviously, look, in a computer, you've got like more and more tabs open. We all do it. I've done it. It takes away the processing power of your computer. And in a way, the same thing really happens with your mind. And the tax, maybe the hidden tax, is your clarity of mind, which really affects your decision making. So I was speaking with a CEO recently who was kind of saying a version of, I've got so many decisions to make all day, but I'm actually not deciding anything. And when we got into it, what she meant was her mind was just really foggy. She was spinning. She was overanalyzing, overthinking. She was reviewing the same issues over and over again. And without realizing it, clogging up her mind and stalling. Now, it wasn't necessarily because she didn't know what to do. It was because she was so busy in her mind and in a way creating it herself, she actually was causing this fog and she couldn't see clearly enough to trust her next step. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I suppose in a business context, really, is like, what if the real cost in your business isn't necessarily financial? What if it's actually mental, if it's cognitive? Because I think most leaders are unknowingly paying this clarity tax. And I think it's costing them time, energy, momentum, and most importantly, decisiveness. Okay, so what is a clarity tax? It's a toll. It's an invisible toll or tax on your performance that's caused by mental clutter. So you'll see it kind of happening by your behavior. Maybe you're overthinking simple decisions. You're replaying past conversations, or you're constantly mental context switching. So you might be working on one thing and then jumping to the next, then just jumping very quickly. And context switching has been shown to really wear you out. So you get more fatigued quite quickly. Or maybe you're worrying about things outside your control too much. That's also a toll. Or maybe, as I say, you've got multiple open loops in your head. And all of that mental noise, that inner noise, pulls energy away from where it matters most, which is helping you to make clean, confident decisions. Now, neuroscience in recent years would show that excessive mental load impairs your brain's prefrontal cortex. And that's the area responsible for executive function and decision making. And some studies, say from Harvard and from Stanford, two reputable universities, highlight how decision fatigue will lead to poorer outcomes the longer we delay action, especially when we're under cognitive load. Now, MIT have done a huge amount of work in this area as well. There's a particularly well-known guy called Earl Miller, who's a neuroscientist there. And one of the quotes that I found from him, I've actually done a lot of research about this guy over the last 18 months since I came across him in a great book called Stolen Focus. But he said, our brains aren't wired to multitask. And every time we switch attention, we pay a mental price. And in a way, that is the clarity tax in action. Now, imagine if your mind is a whiteboard. And so each new worry, each email or unresolved task is kind of like scribbling something onto that whiteboard. Now, if you keep those things on the whiteboard, at some point you're going to run out of space to write anything new. You're not necessarily out of ideas. You just run out of space. You run out of clarity. And that is kind of a metaphor for what I'm talking about here. Or you could also think of it like driving through fog. You can keep going, but every decision as you're going through fog is slower, and it's more tentative, and requires more probably attention and energy, so it becomes more draining. Whereas if you contrast that, say, when the fog lifts, you have more clarity. You move faster, you trust your instincts, everything's easier because it's clearer. And that's what a clearer mind does. So if you can actually reduce or subtract the inner noise, it actually clears the path. Your mind being clearer allows you to see where to go and move faster, make better decisions and more quickly. Now, it's funny, I've got so many stories I could talk about this, about myself, and sometimes you have to learn the hard way by kind of going in and having severe mental clutter before you realize, oh, hold on, this isn't the right approach. And I've got so many client stories. One that comes to mind is a business owner that I was working with where they were stuck on a major high revenue person. So they were really over deliberating it, but also they just weren't managing themselves, managing their mind. Too much thinking, too much analysis. So weeks passed unnecessarily and there was no decision, no movement. But ultimately, when we got to speak and we looked more closely at it, the reality was that they had too many competing thoughts. What about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? They'd gone into overanalysis. So I just suggested at that particular time with this person, I said, listen, just stop all input for the next 24 hours. And what I mean is disappear. Make yourself unavailable in terms of work. So no meetings, no calls, no listening to podcasts, no texts, no phone. I said, ideally go for a hike, switch off, and just really allow yourself to switch off. But what I love about something like this is, that's all that they had to do. And he did say he did it. He said he found it difficult. He was tempted. That's the power of the inner voice, little temptation zone. But he came back after that and had absolute clarity. And he just said to me, he said, when I came back and I was rested and my mind just settled, I knew what I had to do. In fact, he said, I kind of knew what I had to do all along. I just couldn't hear it over the noise. Now, that noise is inner noise, and I'm sure you can relate to that. I think, 5, 6 years ago, when I was talking about inner noise, I remember people saying, what's that? I kind of had to point out how busy their minds were. Now, the noise has gotten so loud for people in their minds. They know that there's so much, but they just think that that's the way it is. And it's not. And we're in a very interesting time right now where I think more and more people are going to start waking up to the power of actually taking a different approach with how they manage their mind, how they manage themselves. I suppose that's one of my reasons for rattling on every week in this podcast, to try and give people a chance to maybe wake up to a different approach. So let's bring it back to you. What about you? Like, where might you be overloading your mental whiteboard? It might be your entire life, or maybe it's just a part of your life or a part of your business or your entire business. If you're a business owner, the temptation is always to stay on 24/7. And maybe what's one area where maybe the real cost isn't your time or your money. Maybe the real cost is your mental clarity. Maybe you're just unwittingly keeping your mind over busy and it's costing you this clarity tax. For example, maybe you're consuming more than you're clearing. Maybe you're, taking in more information than you're actually allowing to come in yourself from your own intuition, your own inner clarity. Maybe it'll be good to stop listening to podcasts a little bit, or reading as much, or being online as much, or just staying busy mentally all the time. Just like my client who went for the hike, maybe you need to take some clarity time to kind of really just allow your mind to settle like that snow globe. And I think it's useful to start noticing when your thinking is helpful versus when it's just habitual. A lot of thinking really is habitual. It's just the same thinking pattern every day, maybe in a different coat. But when your mind is relaxed and clear, and the way I'm speaking about it, it tends to be more helpful, especially if your state is in the right zone. And in my experience, when we're talking about decision making, the best decisions really, if you think about it, this is universal as far as I can see. The best decisions come not from adding more content into your mind. They actually come from, get the content, get the information, but then allow some clearing of your inner noise, clearing the space inside to see what your decision is. So if you're up for a challenge this week, maybe try a mental subtraction exercise. Maybe give yourself a chance to really step away from the inner noise that we're all creating. The world's going nuts at the moment in terms of how much noise it's creating. And it's not the way it has to be. So maybe just even once this week, if you blocked off 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and you went deliberately, no phone, no laptop, no tech, no Apple Watch, nothing around you at all in terms of technology, no reading, but just one thing, a notepad, maybe with a second thing of a pen or a pencil. And then just ask yourself a few questions. Okay, what feels foggy or undecided? Where do I need to make a decision? What assumptions am I holding on to in relation to my business, my life, or relationships? And where can I let go of to make, or what can I let go of to make something easier? Maybe it's making that decision. Or maybe it's holding a grudge, or maybe it's a perspective that you have. Like, what could you let go of to make your situation, your life right now easier? There's definitely probably something. There always is. And I suppose to close out, what I'm saying is the answers you need, that we all need, usually show up not when you're doing more, but when you finally kind of come more into the present moment by allowing your mind to just go, let go of the noise, tune in. Because taking time to consciously clear the inner clutter that we all have, to remove or reduce the noise inside, it isn't just a simple activity. It's actually one of the best strategies to make better decisions. That's it for this week. Ciao for now.